Got it.
Buying a house is one of life's major purchases that you will ever make. You'll never spend more money than when you're about to buy your own house. It feels stressful, it feels like you're being rushed, and will you make the right decision? So why, when we're buying a house in New Zealand, is it made to feel that little bit more stressful?
We had one agent say that, well, the sellers don't know what it's worth. And I said, then how do you do your job when you have no idea what this house is worth? That's just ridiculous.
Why did they do it though, Dan? Is it just greedy or what?
In this week's episode, you're going to meet Dan. Dan moved from the US to New Zealand 2 years ago. When he was in the US, he worked as a real estate agent for 30 years, and he's just bought his own home in New Zealand. He's going to share with you everything there is to know, tips, secrets, little tricks about how to make buying a house in New Zealand that little bit easier. So let's jump on in and see Dan.
Got it.
Welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. Everything you need to know about moving to and living in New Zealand.
There's a whole world here.
So nice to be with you again.
We call it Aotearoa around here, bro.
You'll be right.
We are your hosts, Liz and Brian.
Amazing New Zealand in the southern seas.
See, that's where I belong. That's home.
So, Dan, welcome back to the NZ Ahead podcast. This is the second time you've been on. It's just it's brilliant when I have a guest on for the second time, isn't it, Brian?
I know, because we can have a little bit of a catch up as well.
Yeah,
can't
we can.
Yeah.
So, welcome back, first of all.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was almost a year ago. I saw the last one. It was almost a year ago. So a lot's changed in a year.
A lot has changed and we've got a lot to cover. So for everyone who hasn't seen that first video, I will link to it, but just tell us who you are. Could you just give us a bit of background about who you are before we dive into the juicy bits about buying a house in New Zealand, because you are our expert in that. But before we jump into that, why don't you tell people who you are and how you came to be in New Zealand?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it started about 7 years ago when our daughter and her husband decided to check out where in the world they wanted to live. And we're from the US, the Seattle to Portland area. So that's called the Pacific Northwest. And that's where they grew up. But they're very adventurous and decided, where should we live in the world? And it was during the recession. So jobs were hard to find in our area. So they came to New Zealand with some friends, scoped it out, and decided this is where we want to live. So they ended up moving here, and which was great. We came to visit a few times, loved it. But then they had kids, and that made us grandparents. And we love our grandkids. We definitely wanted to be a part of their life. So plan was to come at least 2 times a year. And then shortly before COVID, our youngest daughter came to visit and decided she really wanted to be in New Zealand as well. So she moved over. So then COVID hit and we couldn't get here. And during that time, our daughter and her husband had a second child, and we didn't see that child for a year other than videos. And that was rough. So we were thinking, what's the purpose in life? To create more, to buy more, to make more, or is it about family? And for us, it was about family. So we started the process, and it's a long story, which we've kind of gone over before, but in the bottom line is it was quite a process and challenging. But in 2022, we were able to actually move over here. So then you have to live here for a while in rentals. That's something we hadn't done in over 35 years. And really, it is expensive. There's just no doubt about it. Rentals in New Zealand are expensive from what I'm used to. So you pay weekly. And so our goal was, what's the least we can live with and save as much money as possible, which was considerably different kind of living than we did in the US. But when you're doing it, you just make it work. And it was fine. We lived in rentals for a year and a half. After we got a resident visa, then we could buy a home if we'd been here a year. So we started the process once we hit that, just before we hit that year mark, and then ended up buying a home. So in the US, I was a real estate agent for 30 years, working in that area between Seattle and Portland. And not to sound like bragging at all, but I would say it was a very successful career during that time. I really loved what I did, loved my clients and what I could help them with. It was just fun. So then we came here and bought a home eventually.
And thank you. Thanks for that great fill-in. But do you know what, Dan? As you was talking then, I just thought, I remember now why I love you so much, because there's lots of people who are in our community, our private community, that have bought houses in New Zealand, and they go on and tell their story, and that's fantastic. But I love your whole ethics, your whole I don't know the other word, but just like your attitude to life, and like that with your daughters coming over, you're just going to make it work. Things are expensive, you're just going to make it work. And that is true in the story you're just about to tell, the experience you're about to share about buying a house in New Zealand. Last Monday, we did a private Zoom call with our community members, and you shared details there. And as I just said to you earlier before we pressed record, there was no way I was letting you go and not share this with a wider public, because it's inspiring. Your attitude is very inspiring, and it's very Kiwi. It's just that let's get on with it, let's make it work, and let's make it happen. So I just want to say that, just when you were speaking, I was thinking, there you go. That's why I love Dan.
Yeah, that's it. I wanted to add to that. I love the attitude of, your family. It's like you say, most of us have got our head burrowed down, make more money, get more things, make yourself more comfortable. And there you are talking about your family. And it's just like, that's the important thing, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, no regrets.
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, I do want to catch up with you quickly, just because I remember the last time we spoke to you, you were a little bit, you were just finding your feet in New Zealand. You weren't 100% settled. And so now I can see a massive transformation, and I love that. And I just want to catch up. But this show is about this episode is about buying a house in New Zealand. So the first thing I would love to know, with you being is it realtor?
So realtor is an organization, but real estate agents are part of a lot of them, not all of them, are part of the realtor organization. So those are two different things, but yes, I was a realtor, but you could just say real estate agent, or even estate agent works fine. People will know what that means.
Before we jump in, though, I just want you to repeat what you just said to me before me and Brian press record about you. What was your motto when you were a realtor?
Yeah. So as a realtor, I just really enjoyed helping people find what they wanted. So the key was to ask lots of questions and try to get, what are you looking for? What does your family need? So I like to consider myself a consultant, not a salesperson. So my motto was helping you make informed real estate decisions. And that's really what I tried to do. I tried to teach people what they needed to know, so they knew they were making the right decision at that time. And it was different from everybody. That's what I love, is the variety you get with people. That every day is a different outcome with even with the same people. So that's what I love.
And you know what, Dan, the thing that really stands out to me as well is, like you say, everyone is different, but we all have the same, when it boils down to it, we all have the same little fears. We all have the same wants and needs. We just want to be happy. We don't want to be ripped off. We don't want to come to move to New Zealand and just like pay massive overprice and be scared and be, just like bamboozled. And I think that's why this is so important. And I'm glad you're doing this with us. When you were working as a real estate agent in America, was there anything that, I don't know if you knew much about New Zealand then, but has New Zealand got any reputation? I'm always interested about this. Has it got any reputation when it comes to house buying that you knew?
Yeah, I did. And mostly because I was interested in it. So average person probably wouldn't even think about it. But so I watched a YouTube video of this young guy who was a real estate agent in the States and came to New Zealand. And he went through the whole process. He goes, okay, first you do this, then you do this, and you do your background on the deeds to the property, and then you do a home inspection, and you do the loan, and then with all this information that you gathered, then you make your offer. And it was funny because it was everything I always did anyway. But then he said, and in the end, none of that matters because the seller's not fixing anything and they're not going to do anything. And I thought, well, that's weird. There's no negotiations. There's no back and forth between the two. And then later I learned that the buyers here are really on their own. And in my area, and I think most of America and probably in a lot of other countries, you can have your own real estate agent that helps you as the buyer who's working in your best interests. And New Zealand frowns upon that. And I think that comes from the real estate industry. It's certainly not from the consumers, but the real estate industry here has pushed that as if you go to an open house, when you sign that registry book that says you were there, then that agent thinks they own you, and no other agent can get paid if they sell you that home. That's just not the way it is in the US. In fact, they frown against that because it's not equal representation. And so you're not getting good advice from the person representing the seller. They say it's like, in America, they talk a lot about it as having suing somebody or having a complaint against somebody, and both of you using the same lawyer. Well, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You each have to have your own lawyer. So it's totally different. And then, of course, the frustrating part is they don't put prices on anything. And that is just ridiculous, in my opinion. It's can you imagine going to the store and seeing apples and going, and there's no price? And so you ask somebody, what's the price? And they say, well, what do you want to pay?
Yeah.
I know.
Well, that's just
Why
ridiculous.
did they do it though, Dan? Is it just greedy or what?
Because they hope that people will get caught up in the emotions of the auction and pay more than what they really want or should, and I just think it's awful. But I'm not going to change New Zealand's system. I don't, but I think that's a terrible way. And truthfully, I will tell you, I think that the sellers miss out on a lot of potential buyers because the buyers have no idea what it's worth. So to me, I hate to be harsh like this, but I think the only person that benefits from it is the real estate agent. I think they try to get as much possible so their commission can be higher. And I don't want to put all of them in a bad light, because they're not. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I do think that system, it's just unfair. It's totally unfair, especially to the buyer and the seller, truthfully.
I agree, because we were talking about that the other day. And I look at the real estate property magazine, and I'm looking through it, and it's like, I haven't got a clue how much things are. So I just close it straight away, because I have no interest in thinking I want to move now, because I'll just stay where I am. Because and you ask a real estate agent, how much the house worth? Well, it's like, this is your job. Someone comes to me and goes, how much for a heating system in a house? It's going to be about 30K, mate. Straight off the bat, that's it, and it's like, if you don't know that, we used to buy and sell property in the UK, and you know what everything's worth because you're in the market, isn't it?
Right.
It drives me mad here. It does.
If you dream of moving to New Zealand, then you are going to love what I'm about to share with you. 12 years ago, when me and Bri emigrated to New Zealand, we were scouring the internet, trying to find any information that we could about what our life would be like when we got here. And basically all we had was YouTube. So we made this vow. We said, when we get to New Zealand, we're going to create something that we can share with others that answers those questions that you're so desperate to know about. Like, what is your life going to be like when you get here? And that's what I'm here to offer you today. We have created a 5-day free, absolutely free video guide that shows you what it's really like to live in New Zealand. This stuff is unique and it is fabulous. You are not going to find it anywhere else on the internet. And like I say, it's absolutely free. You'll be sent a video every day for 5 days and you will know what it's like in New Zealand. So head over to the website. It's www.nzahead.com/free. One more time, that's www.nzahead.com/free. You are going to love it.
To expect. So could you just walk us through, Dan, because you're in Auckland, aren't you? Just
correct. Right.
So could you just walk? I know you've just bought your own home, so this is right on top of your mind at the moment. I just wonder if you could just walk us through, the process of what people can expect when they come to New Zealand and go into buying a house.
Sure. Yeah, it's I'll say this, that in America, especially in that Seattle to Portland area, I would consider myself a specialist, a knowledgeable person in that market. In New Zealand, I've bought one home, so I don't consider myself a specialist, and I've only bought a home in Auckland. So if you're outside of Auckland area, you could find a totally different experience. I expect that in a response from people. But so I can just tell you my experience in real estate in general, what's happened. So first thing, of course, is to try to determine where do you want to live. And that comes down to schools, neighborhoods, all that kind of stuff. So for us, we just did a lot of driving around. And I got to say, because they put this year limit on it before you could buy, I think that was helpful because we changed our mind a few times. And once we got to know the area quite a bit better, in fact, the area we live in now is one that we decided earlier we didn't want to live in. But in the end, we really love it here. We're so glad we bought in this neighborhood. A good way to decide is once you kind of narrow it down and you've looked at things like school system, shopping, access to the freeway, all that kind of stuff, then walk the neighborhood. Just get out of your car, not just drive through, but walk the neighborhood, and you'll get a feel for a neighborhood. I can't even describe what it's like, but you will get a feel. Does it feel safe? Does it feel friendly? Does it, do you hear a lot of barking dogs, or what are the things? And then of course, you'll see people that are out when you're doing that. And what I love about Kiwi people is they are very, very friendly. And so it's easy to talk to somebody and just say, hey, we're just kind of walking through this neighborhood, kind of like this neighborhood. What do you like about it? Why did you buy it? And they will, I think 100% of the time, take the time to answer that question. So I highly recommend you do that kind of stuff. And then once we did that, kind of narrowed down where we wanted to be, then the process of trying to figure out the value of a home, what could we offer? Of course, what's our needs compared to our wants? That's a big one, is how do I decide what do I actually need compared to what do I actually want? And be flexible on the wants. The needs are non-flexible. So for us, we really wanted 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. But did we need 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms? No, we could have survived with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom if we needed to, if that's what it came down to. So, determine those things, what's important. And don't think it's your forever home. Don't think this is your dream home. That's just, those kind of ideas just get you to make decisions that are sometimes irrational and emotional instead of thoughtful. So it can always be your first home. It could always be your next step home. So don't be afraid of that kind of mentality, especially when you first move to New Zealand.
And before you jump in further, I just want to clarify, you have to have been living in New Zealand for a year before you can buy a house. That's right, isn't it?
So in the rules we came in on, yes, that was the case. But so we had to have resident visa, not permanent resident, but we had to have resident visa. And we also had to live in the country for a year. And that became an issue because we started looking before our year was up. And a lot of people said, oh, yeah, you can make an offer as long as it doesn't close until after your year. But one attorney told me that's not true. You can't even make the offer. You can't have any documents with a date prior to your year, or else you have to get special permission. And you can do that. I know one person in our Slack group has done that and been successful with it. I looked into a little bit. It looked way too expensive. It sounds like their experience was pretty easy. So that's really encouraging to hear. But and I got to say this, the rules change all the time. Yes. So make sure you do your homework and understand what it is for you at that moment.
Absolutely.
And so that's important. The other thing I would say, and we didn't do this well enough, is as you're trying to do all this stuff, try to decide who's going to be your team that's going to help you buy this home. So if you're going to get a loan, who are you going to use for a loan officer? A lot of people think they got to go to their bank. That's not true. There's loan brokers that can help you, and they work with a multitude of banks, and they find the best deal. Some people think you have to be a member of that bank before you can get a loan with them. That's not true. You can join that bank once you decide that's the bank you want to use. They will require you use them, but you don't have to be a member before you work with a mortgage broker and decide which bank's best for you. So that was helpful. So mortgage broker, also attorney, start asking around. And I have to say, sometimes the attorneys that the agents like are because the attorneys don't create any problems for them and help get the process. Yeah. Some attorneys are very good at telling you what you need to know so you make good decisions. So ask around who's the best in your area. And a lot of us in the Slack group could give you recommendations that we've used and been very, very happy with. But even just online, you can ask those questions. People will answer them. And then thirdly is your home inspector, because you want to make sure that you have these people lined up, ready to go. So when you do make an offer, you're ready to put this information in your offer, because you'll have to identify who's your attorney when you make your offer. And you don't want to make that decision on the cuff. You want to have an idea who you want to use beforehand. Home inspectors, they vary tremendously. So it's definitely, again, worth asking around who do people like and make sure how in depth they go on their home inspection. And of course the cost, but honestly, I would pay twice the price of what I paid if I had twice twice as good a home inspector. I can't say I was happy with ours, but because I've done thousands of home inspections myself with home inspectors, I knew what to look for and I knew what questions to ask. But if you don't know that, then you need a home inspector that you could trust to do all those details for you. So,
so before we jump
and
into the home inspector, before we jump into all that, let me just be clear. For one, attorney, is that like a lawyer, a solicitor? Is that the same word? Do they use
yeah,
that
it is.
in New Zealand?
It is.
So
Right. Sorry about that.
No, is that,
yes.
so in New Zealand, are they called attorneys or lawyers?
I probably lawyer, I would imagine.
There tend to be lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know it's a special one for property.
In the UK, you can use a solicitor.
Yeah.
You don't really use a lawyer, and you can use a conveyancer who just sells properties. You know, they're not a solicitor, they're not a lawyer. So I don't know whether you can do that in New Zealand. Yeah, it's kind of a bit cheaper to just use a conveyancer, but they might not be as thorough.
So
interesting.
So say you're here then now and you've walked your property and you've stopped to the neighbours and said, you know, you haven't got a barking dog, have you? That's going to bug me. And I like this area. We don't need 3 bedrooms, Sherry. We only need 2. We're staying here. Do you have to have the attorney, you know, the lawyer, the bank money lined up, the house inspection before you even begin to look for a house? Would you recommend getting all those things lined up first?
No, you're kind of doing that as you're looking. It's not required that you do that beforehand, but those are things you need to be looking for while you're looking for a property. Decide who you're going to use for attorney, decide who you want to, or for a solicitor or a home inspector. But first thing, of course, is determining what's a house worth in New Zealand. And that's a hard one. And I put together a list for people in our Slack group that gives some of the references I used. I know there's hundreds more, but I tried to give a pretty detailed list of resources I used to help. A lot of stuff offline or online through websites or Facebook or you name it. There's so many good resources out there that'll help you, and some that'll even tell you values of in neighborhoods on homes that are not for sale. So those were really helpful to me, and that helped us decide which neighborhoods we could afford too. Yeah. So that was good. So I didn't waste my time in an open house at one that I knew they were selling for $2 million when we weren't in that category. So that was helpful.
If you saw a house that you really liked and it had no price on it and you really, really loved it, how do you find out how much that house is worth? Do you have to go onto websites and do your research, or?
Well, you could just call the agent and ask them, what do you think this house is worth? Yeah, I did that a few times. Right. Didn't always get the answer they wouldn't answer the question directly. They'd give a range. Well, we're expecting offers in this range and something like that. But they do need to answer the question. They can't just say, we don't know. We had one agent say that, well, the sellers don't know what it's worth. And I said, then how do you do your job when you have no idea what this house is worth? That doesn't make sense to me. They obviously have an idea of what it's worth. So that was going to be one of my points is in New Zealand, I found this many, many times. You have to ask the second question. You can't just ask the first question because they'll try to answer it very vaguely. You have to ask the second question. So go a little bit deeper. So if you say, what do you think this house is worth? And they'll say, well, we think in this price range. I said, well, what if, how do you determine that value? And well, we wait until we get offers and see, just keep asking questions to draw out more information. Be more of a listener than a talker. That's a huge one. When silence is golden and anytime you're negotiating. So let them talk more and you talk less. So ask questions that require a deeper answer than just yes, no.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Is that if they know the value of the house, do they have to tell you? Because can you turn around and say you're withholding information or not?
No, but they would be dumb not to answer that question. That would be really silly. I was told that yes, they have to give you an idea of the price of the value of a home, but I can't find that resource anyway to anywhere to say that's true. But if it says by negotiation, you got to have an idea where to start with negotiation. It's just annoying that you have to actually ask somebody. So I started doing it more off of websites, and I could look at what homes had sold for in that neighborhood. I could look at what values were as far as tax value. I can't remember what they call it here. CV or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So council value, is that what that stands for? I can't remember, but it's what you pay taxes on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's the rateable value of the property normally. It was
Right.
We first moved into our house. It was a field, and it was for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. If it's a new construction, a lot of times you won't see the rateable value on it because they haven't determined that yet. So yeah, it can take time. And even homes that have sold recently, sometimes it takes up to 6 months before that shows up. So then you could call the agent and say, what did this sell for? Or email them. And I got responses that way too. But it started to help me get an idea. And I would say, take your time. Don't feel like you got to buy the first home you look at. Plan on this taking a few months to get up to speed on and know that you're making good decisions.
Yeah, but Dan,
so that probably brings.
That's easy to say though. But what when you see a house and you absolutely love it, and you just think, oh, and you look down the street and they're queuing up to see it, and the agent's just giving you all the spiel, and oh, you're going to miss out, and I don't know, you just want it, Dan. So yeah, what do I do, Dan? How do I get the best price, Dan?
Yeah, you're a salesman's dream buyer, man.
So she is.
And this doesn't just apply to real estate. This is any kind of salesperson. You know, they're listening to everything you're saying and how you're reacting, and truthfully, this is just the way we work. We buy based on emotions. We make a lot of decisions based on our emotions. And so it's really hard to calm somebody down. This is what I tried so hard to do with my clients. Calm them down and say, okay, think about it. Does this truly offer what you want? Does it give you, is it in the price range? And I've got to tell you, many times I told my clients, I'm not going to help you buy this house because this is not what you told me you wanted. And unless you've changed your mind, this is not what you want. So I would say, I'm just not going to buy it. If you want to buy this house, you use another agent because you won't like it after you purchase it and live here for a while because it doesn't have what you want. So don't let your emotions.
That was just about commission. You wanted more commission. Come on, tell us.
I didn't want an angry client later on down the road. And that's exactly what I was looking at if I helped them buy a house that didn't really work for them. So, it goes here too. Just think it through. And truthfully, sleep on it overnight. None of those homes are going to sell just like that. They almost all have some kind of a deadline sale or an auction or, something, because the buyer or the seller's trying to get as many offers as possible if they can. So they're, typically not going to take the first one the first day, unless it's just a great offer that they can't say no to it. But, and if that's the case, then you don't want to be competing against that person who's willing to pay the top price.
Can I just ask, in an ideal world, like if I lived in America and I got you as my real estate agent, that would just be wonderful because, like you say, I mean, I've never heard of that before, but that is just fantastic, just to say, look, this isn't really what you were looking for, though, is it, Liz and Brian? But do you find, and I don't want to generalize, again, I don't want to be slagging off estate agents or anything like that, but I just want to try and get down to the truth here. Is there a feeling of honesty and have they got your best interests at heart here? I know you can't say about everyone, but just people that you've experienced, are they to be trusted?
Right. That's always so hard because I certainly am not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but I will say this. When we first got here and people found out that I had been a real estate agent in the States, I got this look and it was like, oh, you're one of those.
Right.
And it took a little while to figure out. So finally I stopped saying that. But even my wife at work would talk to people. They'd say, what's your husband do? And she would say, and they're like, oh. So she started asking people, well, what's the deal with real estate agents here? And they do have a reputation. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry for the industry, but they do have a reputation. And that's not a very good reputation. And they love to throw out that fear of missing out. Well, you better make an offer soon and you better make it as high as possible because we've got other people coming and, they're not supposed to say those kind of things unless it's actually true, but there's nobody regulating that kind of stuff too. So it really comes down to the honesty of the agent. And we found some ones that I would say I would never, ever use them, but there's other ones that we really did like that I felt were trustworthy. So that's who we ended up working with, was somebody that we felt like we could trust and had our best interests at heart.
Yeah. And I just want to say for clarification as well, the lady who sold us this house, this land, she was absolutely fantastic. Very similar to you. I've told the story before. We went down there crying. I mean, not that we're emotional people or anything, And she was wonderful, absolutely lovely. Couldn't have asked for a better person. But yeah, there is this feeling, and we're not going to ignore that fact that they have got a bit of a bad reputation. And it's just interesting to hear from someone who has just been through the process if you felt that was true or not. So thanks for answering that honestly, Dan.
Well, and they do in the States too. So it's not just, but it's not common as much as it is here. And because there's so many more regulations on realtors or real estate agents in the States, trying to protect the consumer, I don't see those kind of rules here, or those, there are some, but in fact, one of the things I gave everybody was a website on those rules for real estate agents, so they could see what are they required to do and how do they have to act. But so yes, but the bad ones don't last in the U.S. and I don't know about here. I don't know if they're the successful ones, or if hopefully not. But yeah, the whole theme seems to be getting the most money out of the client. And my feeling was, let's make both sides happy. Let's try to find a middle ground that works for both people. A happy buyer, happy seller. That's the best way to deal with life.
What sort of commission do they charge here in New Zealand? Because I'm not 100% sure myself.
Right. Yeah. I've been told, but I don't have any research on this, but I've been told it's typically about 5% of the sale price. So that's not just the agent. The agent has fees. The office that they work in has fees that they charge. So there's that's not how much that real estate agent is getting. That's how much is given in commission typically. And I'm sure there's variations of that all over the place. There's discount brokers and some that may charge more if they do more for you. So, but as a general rule, I would say it's right around 5% of whatever the sale price is.
So Dan, on the subject of money, can you talk to us about negotiation? Because that's a big one. I think people come over, they've got like 500,000 to spend. They see a house that they absolutely love and it's 600,000 or 575. Is there any point in even going for it? From what I spoke to you on the Slack group on our Zoom call on Monday, you're giving me real good inspirational hope that yes, it is actually worth going for it. And that is because it comes down to great negotiation skills. Can you just talk to us about that? What advice you have for people when they're negotiating, when they go and view a house?
Sure. Well, the definition of value is what is a willing and able buyer willing to pay. It's not what a seller is asking for. It's what's a buyer willing to pay. So in a seller's market, which I think New Zealand has been in for quite a while, that's anytime a home sells within 3 months, that's considered a seller's market. Then the sellers can put a price out there and the buyers are going to have to come close to that or better typically, because the seller controls the whole negotiation in that kind of a market, because there's probably other people buying. And right now what's happening in New Zealand is there's not enough listings. So then the sellers can ask a little more because there's still buyers out there, but there's not as many homes to choose from right now. And that changes all the time, but that's speaking of today's market. At least that's what the news media is saying. So there's always this fear of missing out. So, but don't get caught up in that. Know what your values are. Also, the other thing I did is I tried to see what was happening in trends. So I was seeing that prices were starting to come down when we were purchasing, and they came down about 8% from what they were even just a year earlier. And sometimes the media or the sources will say, well, but it's coming back up next month. We expect this to rise. Well, it never did. And I look at what's happening in my community, and I try to see, are people really willing to pay more than they did before? I don't see that in New Zealand right now. I think there's lots of things going on that are making people kind of hold on to their money a little bit tighter. So I don't see real estate prices going up anytime soon. This is my opinion. Other people will have other opinions, but I just watch the people. And if people aren't feeling flush with money, then they're not going to spend a whole bunch more on a house than they have to, which is going to start helping prices come down, maybe even a little bit more than what they are now. So in negotiation, I just decided, here's what we want to spend. And every agent we talked to said, well, that's not enough. I had one of the homes we made an offer on. I told them what we wanted to offer, and she said, that's not enough. That's insulting. And I just let that ride for a second. And then I started asking more questions. And then I came back to, so you said that was insulting to the seller. I said, we didn't offer, 300,000 less than what they're offering. We're offering 50,000 less than what they want. why is that insulting? I don't understand why that's insulting. Do they have other offers to compare to? And she said, well, no, but they're expecting more than that. And I said, well, how do you determine the value? The value is determined by the buyer, right? Not the seller. So if I'm willing to pay that, they can decide if they don't want to sell it for that. So it's just having that conversation. I wasn't confrontational with people, but I tried to force them to answer the questions so that they weren't just throwing out little things that were supposed to inflame me and get my emotions going. I was trying to make them explain a little more detail of why they felt that way.
I bet she went home that night and she said to her, she poured a massive glass of wine. She said to her, I was on bloody hell. You won't believe the bloody customer I've just had today.
Well, and that's what's important is to have them explain. I mean, they're supposed to be the experts. So have them explain to you, why do you feel that way? And finally she said, well, it's just worth more than that. And I went like this, it's not worth more than that to us. And she said, okay.
Yeah.
But that's what it came down to. I said, it's not worth more than that to us. And so we ended up missing out on that house, but it only sold for about 20,000 more than what we offered. So, we weren't far off. Our offer was not insulting. So, don't take those things that people tell you as truth. It's not insulting if it's a reasonable, well thought out offer. And then just take the time to explain it.
And legally, they have to pass that offer forward if you put it through?
Well, I even asked her that. I said, so are you saying you're not going to present our offers? She goes, no, I can't do that. And I said, well, then that's what we want to offer. And so she finally did. And then of course, but I know she's going to the seller going, don't take this offer. This is terrible offer. Don't even consider this offer. So, there's always that narrative going on between them too, that I'm not a part of. So I'm trying to give the agent ideas to back up my offer too. So that's why I'm talking to the agent in front of me and trying to explain why it's this much.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a starting point, haven't you? You've got to have a starting point to negotiate. And that's
exactly,
if you're going to have to negotiate, we don't know a fixed price. You've got to start with a peg in the sand somewhere, haven't you? So it's
exactly.
Yeah.
What about open homes, Dan? Oh, sorry.
So open homes were very interesting. I did go to those quite a bit. I think that's a great way just to get a feel for what's out there. Because homes are different here than probably any other country you're from. Or even location. I'm sure it's different in Dunedin than it is in Auckland, but I needed to get an idea what to expect in a home. And then as I'm looking, I think you really need to look at any home twice. The first time you're going to be in awe with it. You're going to see all the highlights. The second time you're going to see the faults. And so the second time is really important to be there at least twice before you make a decision on a home. Because you're going to go right past all the good stuff and start looking deeper. But those were really helpful. But once you go to that open home, the agent wants you to sign in, and then they think they own you as a buyer. So what we did is we went to a few open homes, found an agent that we really liked. I read his bio online, and this is the guy we want to use. And so I asked him, how do I do this? And he said, well, we can, all agents are willing to do this, but we can do what's called a conjunctive sale, where it's a different agent for the buyer and the seller, if the agent's willing to do that. But I have to show it to you. You can't go to an open house. But so in the end, what we ended up doing, long story short, is we went to the open house of this house. And the agent was here. She wanted us to sign her book. And I said, well, we already have an agent. And she said, oh, yeah, who's that? And so I said, she says, oh, I know him. He didn't mention that you were coming. So she wanted me to fill out the form. So I put his name and phone number on that instead of ours on their sign-in sheet. And I was just very clear that bottom line is I'm not going to buy this from you. Now, that worked in Auckland. That may not work in some other small community where all the agents know each other and don't want to offend each other, but it worked in our area. And these two happen to know each other, get along fine. But it definitely gave us a different relationship with that seller's agent than we probably would have had. I felt more comfortable because I had my own agent then to ask questions, though.
What attracted you to that guy? Why did you choose him? What was so special about him?
Okay, so good family guy, had some involvement in the community that he was. So one of the things he does is they are supposed to do 5 hours of marketing every week. So it's like calling people or knocking on doors or something. Well, he does by doing free work for somebody 5 days a week. So he'll have people sign up in a community and then he'll go do 5 hours of free work for somebody. So it could be painting a fence or something. But, to me, that just shows somebody who's committed to their community and really wants to make it a better place. And so that just sold me. I mean, this is the guy I want to work with. But yeah, that's what worked.
So when you say an agent, you mean they work for the same company, the same organization?
Yeah, ours did not. Now they prefer that. Yeah, they preferred that, because then the two offices had to decide, are we willing to pay this office some of the commission? Typically it's half. I don't know how they negotiated it, but are we willing to give you half of the commission in order for you to have the buyer, when maybe we could still find our own buyer if we didn't give it to you? So, but in this case, we weren't competing against anybody.
Right.
Other than verbally, they told us there's other people interested, but there was never another offer that we were competing against.
So say you're using professionals and you're using Ray White. What you're saying is then you can use those two different companies if you say, no, I have a real estate agent that I want to use.
That's what we did. Yeah, that's what we did.
Right. That's fantastic.
But that doesn't always work. So I won't say that every office will allow another office to sell their listings. Now that's different in the States. In the US at least, they're called a multiple listing service. So we all agree to put our listings on these sites, and then an agent from another office or can sell as long as they're a member of that same multiple listing service. And I think that's in the best interest of both the buyer and the sellers. The buyers get opportunity to see more homes, and the sellers get more buyers, because it's not just whoever my agent meets, it's who are all the agents in the area, who are they working with, and will they help me find a buyer as well. So in the end, I think it's a way better process than what they do here in New Zealand. But who am I to say? I'm just one person.
So I happen to know that the house that you're in now, you negotiated a good price for that house, and you got a bit knocked off. So can you just talk to us about that process, how that all went, and how that came about?
So yeah, and unfortunately, I said that we had a difference of 500,000. Wasn't that much? It was 50,000. So yeah, I don't know where that other zero came from, but what's a zero between friends, right?
Yeah, when we came off the Zoom call, I was like, wow. Oh my God, he saved 500,000. And Brian,
I wish I was that good.
Yeah, they must have been desperate.
No, so that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, go on.
Sorry about that.
Tell us. No, not at all. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so we came in with what we thought was our offer, and of course our agent said that's not enough, and so we talked a lot about it, and he made some good points, so we raised our offer some. Well, I talked to the agent here when we came to the open house, and I asked them what do they expect to see in price, and so she gave me a range, and then they countered at about 50, I think it was about 55,000 higher than what we offered. I said, well, that's not in the range that we first said, and so we came back with our counter offer, and I explained to my agent why I thought this. And we went back and forth, I think 3 times, maybe 4 times. It might have been 4 times. So, don't be afraid. The key in negotiation is don't ever tell yourself no. So if you get a counter offer, you don't like it, don't say, well, then we're done. That's just it. Don't do that. Give another counter offer. Let the other side tell you no. That's how you end up with what you want in the end, is let the other side tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. But it came down to, it started getting, in my opinion, a little petty. We came back with 10,000 less than theirs, and we had good reason for this. And then they said, nope, we're going to stay up at this higher number. So, or we want 5,000 more. And I told my agent, they probably think $5,000 is no big deal. And he said, yep, they're saying that's just like a Christmas gift. And I said, well, I don't know who their family is, but mine doesn't give me $5,000 at Christmas. So that's not a Christmas gift. I said, to me, that's new appliances, because those appliances are 13 years old and they're going to start breaking down pretty soon. So I said, that $5,000 that's a big deal to me. So, no, we're not going to do that. So what we did instead is we said, we'll give you some more time to think about our counter offer. And they had done open houses. We bought when the cyclone was happening and the flooding was happening in New Zealand. And so they weren't getting much at their open houses. Also, this house didn't have heating in it, and the carpets were kind of gross. And the lady that lived here liked to put a lot of perfumed stuff in a room. So you walk in, if you had any kind of allergies to those kind of things, you were going to get a headache just like that. Right. But those are things I can fix. Those are easy fixes. So, look beyond that stuff. The other thing is they needed time. They were asking for time. Otherwise they were because they were building a new house. So they wanted 3 months before they had to move out. That would have been ideal for them. That was perfect for us because we were still 3 months into our lease agreement, and I would have had to try to break that. So we said, okay, you can have the extra time. We'll have our agreement, everything done, but we'll give you the extra time. And then we didn't ask for anything like a heating system or the carpets to pull or anything. We were fine with doing that kind of stuff. But $5,000 in the end. So we said, in the end, we said, okay, why don't you do one more weekend of open houses? If you don't get any better offers, then we'll wait. And so they did. They didn't have anybody show up because it poured down raining that weekend.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. and then they signed our offer, and they were very happy. So then after that, we did the limb report, gave that to our attorney, and the limb report is just a detailed paperwork report on this property. It talks about all the consent agreements and when it was built and where flooding is in the area and all this. It's really, really deep information. And you can have the option to have your attorney review that or not. We did. We decided that was worth it, and which I'm glad I did, because she pointed out that, hey, the driveway was never approved. And if you don't get that approved, that could be a problem. They can actually force you to pull that out, make sure it's built right, and then put it back in. And it's highly unlikely, but it's a possibility. So we went back to the other agent and said, or to our agent, said they need to get this fixed. And so he asked the agent, and she said, no, they're not doing it. In fact, we got other people right behind you ready to buy this house if you just don't sign off on your conditions. And I said, well, why? I mean, it should be an easy fix. And so we talked to an attorney about it, and she said, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't just refuse. I wouldn't just buy a house without something like that fixed, because you're going to have to fix it later on. And they're the ones that had it built, so they should have the contacts. So I kept pushing, and the other agent was very upset. She just didn't like that at all. And so I even got called from the broker of the house, of the real estate office, saying, look, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Just the paperwork snafu, and then fix it. So they spent all this time, going back and forth telling us how that we were being ridiculous, but nobody ever talked to the council to see if we could get it fixed. So I finally did. And then my agent was getting frustrated, so he did too. So I didn't know he was doing that, but we both got the response at the same day that said, yep, it's all signed off, it's all approved now. And I'm thinking, why did we go through all that emotional stuff? Why didn't somebody just call council? That's what you guys are supposed to do, isn't it? But apparently they don't do that here. That's what I would have done in the US. I would have gone to my local council and just said, hey, here's a problem. What do we fix this? But I didn't get that here. So
and just on
but
that,
in the end,
I was just saying, on
go ahead.
the councils are very, very helpful here. I don't know what they're like in the States, but I've never met such helpful council people,
I find the same. Yeah, I find the same in the States. And here too, they were just really helpful with me. That's what I was going to say. So we're talking to our attorney the whole time about this and saying, they're saying that they got other offers, and what happens if they do that? And she said, that's crazy, because I'm talking to the seller's attorney and they're happy. The sellers are happy with this. They want to find an answer to this. So, the agent was telling me one thing, the attorneys are telling me a totally different story. And I told my attorney, you know what? I think I'm going to trust you and not my agent. And she said, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But I'd rather listen to my attorney than my real estate agent.
Sure.
So it worked out.
What about the home inspection? Didn't that pull up? What does a home inspector do then? Why didn't they pull up the fact that the driveway wasn't legal?
Yeah, they don't do that kind of paperwork inspection. They're doing a structural inspection. They're looking to see if the house is built well. Does it meet the current codes and that kind of stuff? But our home inspection didn't do very much. So really all he did was he did crawl up on the roof and told me about a couple of roofing tiles that were cracked. And then he did check moisture around all the windows, because I know that's a real concern around here, and gave me moisture readings on all the windows. What I'm used to in a home inspection is they turn on all the faucets in the house, let it run for a while they're doing other stuff, turn on the heating, air conditioning. Of course, we didn't have that, so it didn't matter. But turn on the ovens and dishwashers and all these things. Because I want to know what things are going to cost me money after I close. Once I live here, what are the things that are going to cost me money? Doesn't mean the seller's going to fix them, but at least I need to know what to expect. So as we're going through, I'm going, he's not really checking very much. And so I asked him, do you check the smoke detectors? And he said, no, because I can't guarantee they're going to work tomorrow. And I said, I don't care about tomorrow. I want to know they work today.
Yeah.
That's
So,
just lazy.
so I went over and I pushed it. And then he's like, oh yeah, okay, well, here's how you do that. And on the fans in the bathrooms, I said, do these have enough suction? Because it doesn't feel like it. And he goes, well, I don't check those because that's not part of my scope. And I said, well, look, all you do is grab a tissue and hold it up to the fan and turn it on. And if it holds the tissue up, it's got enough suction. And these ones didn't. And he goes, oh yeah, there's that trick too. You can do that. And I said, well, that's kind of what I'm looking for here.
What are you paying for money for?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole inspection was about 40 minutes. And it's like, what did I pay $400 for that inspection? All I got was moisture readings and some tiles that are cracked on the roof. Well, so I did that. I went around and turned on all the faucets and made sure that there was no leaks under any of the sinks and, anywhere I could. We don't have, ours is on a cement slab. So obviously you don't have to look underneath, but I just wanted to see that stuff.
Yeah.
But they should normally check all the outlets and make sure they're working, that they're polarized right. Because sometimes people put the wires the wrong way. And, there's all kinds of things that happen that a home inspector should be able to do. So these are the questions I would say next time. Here's where we failed on that. We didn't have a home inspector lined up before we made our offer. So once we made our offer, one of the things we did is we said we would have the home inspection done within 5 days. That was more palatable to the seller. Well, 5 days wasn't enough time to do a lot of research on a home inspector, and most of them couldn't get there within 5 days. So the guy we got was kind of by default. And so that's why I'm saying, as you're putting your team together that's going to help you buy your home, get an idea who you want as a home inspector too. So you have that lined up, and maybe one or two in case they're not available when you need them.
What's the price are we looking at for a home inspector?
Well, we paid 400.
Sorry, $400.
Yeah. I would have paid easily twice that for a much better home inspection. I mean, I would have paid up around $1,000 if I had to for a really, really good home inspection. And it's not because I want them to tear the place apart. I want them to inform me of what to look for. I mean, I'm used to them looking at the hot water tank and telling me, hey, it's 12 old and these things only last 15 typically. So, just be aware of that. Just be aware of what to expect as expenses down the road. That's what I was expecting in a home inspection. We didn't get any of that. Wow. So I'm not going to name any names. I'm not in the shame business, but I do think that it's definitely worthwhile to do. And he actually had pretty good reviews online. So it surprised me what I got for my money.
Yeah. Just to reassure people that, because we did have like I said, that live Zoom on Monday, and Torin from Dunedin, he did have a home inspection, and he said his lasted 4 hours. He was really happy with it. So I think, like you say, do your homework. That's really good advice. I just want you to, before we close up the show, I want you to give us 3 main tips that you could give people, just like what are your main 3 big takeaways after buying your house in New Zealand. And I'm desperate to get to the bottom of this thing about this emotional thing, Dan. I need to tap into that so badly, because that's how you lose money and that's how you make mistakes, because you go by your emotions. But anyway, So what would you say your 3 main takeaways are for people who are going to be buying a house in New Zealand?
Yeah, I tried to write this out, and we've gone through a lot of these, and honestly, there's so much more I could have talked about, but that's not my goal here, is to teach you everything. It's just get you thinking. Yeah. So probably my 3 main takeaways I would say is, first off, make sure you're making informed real estate decisions. So that comes right into these emotions. Don't buy based on how it feels. Do that extra homework to make sure it's a decent price. You like the neighborhood, that you are in the school system, if you have kids in school, and just make sure that house is what you think it is emotionally. Second one is find a team that you want to work with. I've said this a couple of times, but how important it is to have people that are helping you, because you're not going to be the expert on everything. You need to rely on other people. You need to rely on your lawyer or attorney. You need to rely on your home inspector. You need to rely on your finance person. So you need to know those are people that you want to work with that are going to help you make good decisions. So build that team and have that ready to go. And then last one, as I said earlier, make sure you ask that second question. I'll just give you a quick example. So I was asking somebody, they were talking about this place to buy meat in close to us. And I said, oh yeah, where is that? And they said, oh, it's right across from Pack and Save. I went, okay, great. I know where Pack and Save is. So I go driving over there, and there is nothing around Pack and Save at all. Well, where around Pack and Save? So I finally see him again. I go, so where are you talking about in Pack and Save? And so they go, yeah, it's just like in that industrial area over there. And I said, well, there's no industrial area over there. Well, it's like half a kilometer away from the Pack and Save, but it's over by Pack and Save. So, and I find this all the time, that you have to ask the second question. Oh yeah, we're at over there, and try to ask more details. But definitely that applied even with the real estate agents. Like one of the houses we looked at, I asked the agent, so what do you know about this house? And he goes, well, what do you want to know? And I said, I want to know everything you know.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't going to tell me unless I asked specific questions. Because one thing they do here is they're very careful to not know too much, because they have to tell you if they know anything negative about that house. So they just try not to know anything. So, but like, I asked, how old's the roof? And he goes, it's not that old. It's, well, how old is it? I'm not really sure. I said, well, can you talk to the seller and find out how old this roof is? And if they've had any issues, oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I guess I could do that. So ask that second question, always be willing to do that. So those would be my three main things. Make informed real estate decisions, not based on them just through your emotions. Find a team, and then ask the second question. I feel like if you do at least those three things, then you'll feel much better about the final choice that you make and the final decision you make. I hope that's helpful.
That is super helpful.
It is great. It's so helpful. I remember watching a podcast. Chris Fox, I think his name is an FBI negotiator. Just search him out.
Dan's like him, isn't
but
he?
that's what it reminds me of when you said silence is golden.
I know.
It is.
Yes,
that is so true.
Yeah. One of the things I did, because part of real estate, of course, is understanding people. And that's what I focused my whole career on, was understanding people. So I signed up in my community to do mediation. So I had to go through all this training to do mediations. And as a mediator, you're just listening, and you're just trying to help direct people to the right question, and non-confrontational questions in a mediation particularly. But that was really helpful. But what you learn while you're listening is what's really important to people. So, but you also learn that other people talk more when they're silent. So even a real estate agent will do this. If you're silent, they'll talk more. And so I'll give you an example. Just recently, and this is one thing I found recently with negotiating in New Zealand, is if they're silent, they'll start offering more too, because they think you're not interested. So we just bought a caravan, and when we were talking to this person, I was just looking it over very carefully. Well, as he's, because it's silent, I'm looking at stuff, I'm crawling underneath it, I'm doing all my detail diligence. He starts offering things. So he said, well, we could probably throw an awning in with this, and we could probably put a cover in with this. And by the time we got out of there, I felt like we got a good deal, and I didn't ask for any of it. He just kept offering because he didn't think I was interested yet. He was just trying to get me interested. So all I can say is the silence was golden. I mean, I would say, and we ended up actually getting brand new batteries in this thing too. So altogether,
that's free.
What about the tires?
We ended up probably getting about $3,500 worth of extra stuff, just because I didn't ask for it, but I was quiet. Yeah, because they were trying to get me to the point of saying, okay.
Yeah.
And a microwave.
And a microwave.
And a microwave. Yeah.
I want a dress for my wife.
Yeah. What make caravan did you buy being an American?
It's a 1973. I wish I could remember the name, but it's a classic one. It's a smaller one. It's only 12 foot. Yeah, which is all we need. So, but we ended up going to a dealer because I actually got a better deal, I felt, especially with all that stuff, plus a 6-month warranty than and we looked at a lot of private ones, but this was really worked out in our best interest.
Fantastic.
Do you know what? Yeah. I just your caravan talk. I just think I was sitting there thinking, I thought, it's one of the most major decisions in our life that we make is where we're going to live, isn't it? And yet I'm just speaking about myself here. You're almost embarrassed to upset the agent when you go in, and listening to you, this is how it should be done. Like you are the blueprint of how you should buy a house, because let's face it, this is your hard-earned money. This is where you're going to spend all your time. why shouldn't you say get the driveway fixed and, you know, look under that roof and do all that? And no, I'm not paying that much money. So I just think it's flipping. I want to be like you, Dan. I really, in fact, I want to be you.
No, you don't.
Dan?
It hurts when I wake up in the morning. Okay, you don't want to be me.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
So before
But I will say, yeah.
Oh, go on. No, go
Just
on.
just remember, they're salesmen. I mean, they're nice people. They've got wives, families, you know, who knows what. They've got a life too, and they're trying to feed their kids. So I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody, but I also know they spend an awful lot of time going to classes and reading books on how to get you to pay more money. So that's their specialty. And you want the person who is not just learning that stuff, but also how to treat people right. And that's what I wanted to do, because there's lots of both out there. If you look, just don't take the person who's just trying to get the most out of you. And boy, all you got to do is go on vacation someplace and see all the people trying to sell you stuff along the side of the road. And that's the way I see some real estate agents, unfortunately, but not all. There's some really, really, really good ones too. So it just pays to do your homework. Find one you really like to work with.
Do you know
It's my money?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what else is standing out to me as well? Is you know, like there's this thing, isn't there, about New Zealand? You know, the minute it comes on the market, it's gone. There's no way you're going to get a rental. There's no way you're going to be able to buy. Well, the woman down the road from us, for a start, she's had her house on for over 3 months. And I'm just wondering, I mean, I don't know if this is true or not. This is just me thinking, but I'm wondering if the agents are geeing all this up and causing all this, you know, like drama, like sort of, oh yeah, come on, make it, like you just said, make an offer because people are down the road waiting. Are there?
Yep.
Are there really? Because maybe they're not, you know. And
well, they're not supposed to say that unless it's actually true. But I can tell you that they say that even if it's not true. Because I don't know how many times I've heard, oh, there's somebody right behind you. We've got a couple more people.
yeah.
You know, one of the lines that I used to hear all the time in the States is, well, we're expecting a lot of interest. I go, well, do you have any interest? No, but we're expecting a lot of interest. Well, that's a different term than we got other offers. So
just one last thing I just want to ask you. Do you, I mean, a lot of people are saying now, you see on YouTube and stuff, don't buy a house. It's not a good investment. It's not a good thing to do. Because I don't want to go into details here, but do you think, is there a difference between buying a house in the US versus buying one in New Zealand? What's a better investment?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of depends on your lifestyle too. If you need to move quickly, or you don't want to be tied down to a place, then I think renting has its value. I definitely do. Or if for some reason your life is just that you can never seem to save up enough for a down payment, then you're probably going to be renting your whole life. And that's certainly a great way of living. The value of owning property is property does typically go up in value. Even though it can come down sometimes, it typically comes back up. In America, we had a huge recession in 2006 through 2008 area. And so prices came down a lot. And it took about 9 years for them to come back above what they went down. So just to get back to where they were. But now, geez, those same houses are worth way more. So, you know, long-term investment, I haven't found anything better personally than real estate investments. That's why you see so many landlords in New Zealand, is houses have increased in value over time. And then they've been able to borrow from their house to buy another house. And then that house has gone up in value. So they borrowed from both and bought another house, and they're renting those out. It's a great passive investment. I can't undersell the idea of being or of that passive investment idea. It's wonderful. So, but even in retirement and all that, it's where else you're going to put your money and get that same kind of rate of return that's pretty secure. It's something you can touch and feel. I think it's a great investment. So even though we have to live here, our money's basically secure here too, and will grow probably faster than what we're investing in the stock market, truthfully.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
So I'm a big advocate for home ownership, even if you got to stretch yourself a little bit, but don't be house poor. Don't stretch yourself to the point that you can't afford to live life too. I see now they're offering where you can use your Kiwi saver for down payment, and it's probably okay, but also understand that Kiwi saver is meant for retirement. So if you spend it now, you don't have it when you retire. So unless you can get it back out of there and put it back in your Kiwi saver, have a plan for that kind of stuff, because otherwise you're, you know, you're, 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 yeah, how's that go? You're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. So don't do that. Yeah, don't do that.
No, that's good advice.
Dan, you have just been an absolute wealth of knowledge. And like I say, I'd love to just do a separate podcast on just how to stop being so emotional when it comes to selling. So I might be ringing you about that. But before I let you go, I just did promise to touch on this for people who watched your first podcast and saw you arrive in New Zealand. And the thing that was prominent there was that you were struggling a little bit to make friends. You felt a little bit like, like a fish out of water kind of thing when you first moved to New Zealand. And quite obviously now that is not the case. I mean, you look so well, you're so happy. And how did things go? And, can you just give us a rough outline of how things changed for you?
Sure, that's actually quite interesting because I just listened to your podcast with Lisa and talking about being homesick. So I just listened to that one the other day, and it was very real that it just takes time, and as long as you're understanding that this is going to take time. What I feel today is not permanent; it's just today. So until we actually had a home, for me that was really key. I didn't want to get too invested in wherever we lived, with even neighbors and that kind of stuff, because we were renters and they knew we were renters. And truthfully, you do get treated a little different as a renter in the neighborhood than as a homeowner. So now we're a homeowner. We've met all our neighbors, and it's quite interesting because they come from all over the world. We only have one neighbor that's actually a Kiwi. Otherwise, they're Singapore, Germany, Taiwan. It's really interesting, but they're all wonderful people. And so, we're developing those friendships. It's easier for Sherry because Sherry's at work. I'm not, I'm retired. So, and then I'm also meeting people through my kids and their contacts too. What I am really finding personally is I don't need a large friend group. A few good friends is good. And maybe it's just because I'm a guy. I just don't. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to join a club or something. But we are actually looking at joining a bridge club. We want to learn how to play bridge, and our neighbors across the street do too. So we're going to go to that together and learn. So, it's don't feel like it's not, if I don't have any friends, it's my fault. It's not anybody else's fault. So it's up to me to do that homework and figure out what do I want to be a part of. I have to admit, I still struggle sometimes with some of the slang and the accents, especially, and not just Kiwi, from all over the world. That's just not something my ear is tuned to. So I have to listen very carefully to see what people are saying, and that'll take time too. But I could say it's much better now than it was. All in all, I could say we have no regrets for moving here at all. We've definitely questioned at times, but the world we left is no longer there either. We can't go back to the same jobs. We can't go back to the same house. We can't do any of those things. If we go back, it's not going to be the same. So, but we're very, very happy here too. So I don't know if that answers it well or not, but just to say, do I feel content here? Yes, definitely. And for us, it's truly about our family, being around our kids. And now we have 3 grandkids, not just 2. So being here for that third one being born, that was magical. And we will cherish those memories forever, and being a part of their life. That's worth more than any kind of money or anything else. It's worth more than being close to our parents. It's why we're here.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
Dan,
great.
thank you
That's
so
a great
much.
update.
That was a wonderful update. You're a fabulous guy, and we are so happy to have you in our community and in New Zealand. And don't you dare ever think about going back to the US.
I think one of the things I loved about what you've done since you've moved, or in the last year, is buy and sell on Facebook. And it's just like, this guy was selling $1 million houses, and now he's just selling the little stuff, like, And it's
I do so much of that. Yeah.
You become an Arthur Daly, mate.
You can take.
I don't know whether you know who that is, but it's a current husband.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I really love here is landscaping. That's something I've just we did 6 homes in the States where we bought homes that needed fixing, and then we fixed them up, and then we lived there or we used them as rentals. And so buying this and having to do a little bit of work to it, that was something I just love doing. But primarily it's a landscaping, taking out all the old plants, putting in new plants. And that's where I'm getting my fill of filling where I think I need it, that kind of stuff. sense of accomplishment. It's instant gratification when you do landscaping.
It is. It really is.
So true.
Well, Dan, give my love to Sherry. I'm sure Brian speaks the same.
Yeah, for sure.
And thank you so much for joining us on the show. And thank you for being part of our community. And just thank you for being you.
It's always a pleasure. Dan. Always a pleasure seeing you guys.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. We have loved having you here with us.
If you love this week's show, please share this with your friends. Send it to anybody you know that wants to think about moving to New Zealand, and get on over here yourself.
And tell them how brilliant it is as well. And also, if you haven't signed up for our free 5-day video guide showing you what life is really like in New Zealand, then go over to the website and sign up. You are missing out. This is brilliant. Go over to www.nzahead/free and we will send you 5 days worth of videos about what life is like in New Zealand. You are going to love it. So one more time, that website that you need to sign up for the free 5-day guide is www.nzahead/free. So we're going to see you next week. Until then, have a great week and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Say bye again. Bye.
Bye.